Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Future Dimensions 360. As you guys know, we are discussing about life cycle of class component. So in last tutorial we had discussed about mounting phase. Today we will be discussing about updating phase of class lifecycle method. What are the methods available in updating phase and how we can use it. Let's go ahead and try to discuss it in detail. First of all, the updating phase method available is a static method that is same as we discussed last time, get derived state from props. What's that method? It's take two input variable as parameter, props and state, and what it will do is it when the state of the component depends upon the changes in the props, like it will let you know you can update the state with the help of props. Any kind of states that are dependent on the props, you have it's recommended in that scenarios you can use this method and update your states. As this is a static method, this keyword is not available in this method. You can just return the object of state, either null or the object you want to set in your state. You can set the state through this method, and again, as I told you before as well in last tutorial, do not cause and do not do any network call or payload or load any kind of data in this method. It's not recommended to go on with these things. Secondly, we have available method is should component update. As the name is specifying that this component will update you, either the component is going to be updated or no. It's taking the new props that is appearing or new states as an input as a parameter and indicates that component will be re-rendered or not. It's normally used for optimization performances. So in return, what you will do is either in this method, either you will return true or false to indicate your class that to indicate your React that the component is going to be re-rendered or no. If the return statement is true, then the React will re-render or call the rest of the lifecycle methods. If the return is false, React will just discontinue to call the updating phase or rest the remaining methods for the updating phase. Next, again, in this method, even it's not recommended to go on and do any kind of HTTP call or any network call or any Axios or Ajax call. Next, we have a random method, same as we discussed last time, only required method in the class component. Read props and states, and you can destructure props and state in this method, and you can return JSX as a node or DOM node in this method that will go into your DOM or frontend. Do not change any state directly within this component. It's really not recommended, or any Ajax or Nexios or network call is not recommended in this method as well. Other than that, as soon as this method is being called, after that the control will go to the child components and try to execute the lifecycle methods of child components. Move forward, we have next method is get snapshot before update. This method actually take previous state and previous props as an input and let you know to return either a null or some value. For example, I'll say it's calling right after the DOM is updated or re-render. This method is called immediately, and what it will do is it will capture some information from the DOM. For example, you are having a scroll position and you want the user to be on the same scroll position once the DOM is updated. So you can use this method to capture the scroll position and perform some calculation and return some value. The value you are returning in this method will go as a parameter to the next upcoming method. So as you can say, method will either return null or value. Return value will be passed as a third parameter to the next method. Lastly, we have component did update. Component did update will take three different parameters as an input: previous props, previous state, and the returned value from the get snapshot before update. It will be called after the finishing of rendered cycle or re-render cycle or updating cycle, the last method. And the basic thing is that in this method you can perform your data loads, your network calls, your Ajax call, your Axios call, and all that stuff. You can set up your states, you can perform any kind of manipulation and all those stuff in this method. It's highly recommended to use this method. Normally, from these five methods in React, we are using two methods only. The one is render, and the second one is component did update. In this one, you are using these two methods normally. Other than these, three different methods: get derived state from props, should component update, and get snapshot before update. These three methods are very rarely used method in terms of very specific scenarios. So let's go ahead and try to check this cycle in our code. Let's back to our project, and this is our project back again. We are having two component, lifecycle A, lifecycle B. As we see in our last tutorial, we'll be using same. As you guys see in my visual code, as you guys see, what I will do is I will just remove this one as well for the meantime to make it more clear. Okay, lifecycle A and lifecycle B. This was giving you multiple calls for every method. It's because of strict mode. I'm using strict mode. I'll just remove the strict mode. By the way, the strict mode we will be discussing later on in detail what strict mode is actually and why React is using that. And now you guys can see the React is just rendering the cycle one time only. First of all, constructor, secondly get derived state from props, then render, then it will go to cycle B, and then from the child constructor get derived state from prop, then render, and then the component did mount for the class B or child component, and then lifecycle A. This is the actual phase of mounting. So now let's go ahead and try to check our updating phase. In updating phase, first of all, we have get derived state from props, same as it is. Second method is should component update, and what it will do is it will take previous props and previous state as an input and return. I'll return true because I want to run all the method and all that stuff. And in this one I will console.log. Same thing for the lifecycle A. After should component update, first method for updating phase is this one, get derived state from props. Second method is get should component update. Third method is render, and the fourth method is get snapshot before update. Get snapshot before update will take same thing, previous props and previous state. After that, what I will do is I will return the same console.log, and in the log I will just say this is for should update, and in this one I'll say return null, don't return anything. After that I have the last method, that is component did update. Component did update will take also previous props and previous state as an input, and I can call directly console.log without returning anything in component did update. Let's go ahead and try to check if it's working or no. Let's clear this one and try to this, but I need something to update as well. So what we can do is we'll create one button here. In that button I'll say click me, and on click me I'll call one handler, and the handler will be, I will say change handler equals to arrow function, and arrow function will say this dot set state, and the set state will say name equals to future dimensions 360. I am changing the name to future dimensions 360, and here on the button on click I will say on click this dot handle change handler. Let's go ahead and try to reload the page, and you can see our mounting phase is already appearing in our constructor. Let me clear the console. Let me clear the console and try to click on click me. CLICK click spelling is wrong. Let me correct it and let me see and let me clear all the console, and here we are now. Let's go ahead and try to update the state. The state is empty and we will update it to future dimension by clicking this button. As soon as I click my button, my state is updated, and you can see in the updating phase, first of all, get derived state from props is called from lifecycle A. Then from lifecycle A, should component update is called. Then lifecycle A render is called. After that, control shifted to lifecycle B, and in the lifecycle B, get derived state from props is called, render is called, component did update is not defined there, that's why it didn't call, and should component update also is not defined there, that's why it didn't call also. Then lifecycle A get snapshot before update is called, and component did update is called. Let's go ahead and try to create these methods in our class B as well, lifecycle B as well, and change the lifecycle A to lifecycle B and save it. Hit save and go ahead and try to reload and try to remove the consoles for mounting phase, and as you guys see, we are here now. Let's go ahead and try to click me. I'll click on the button to change the state. Once I change the state, you guys see lifecycle A get derived state is called, first method. Second, should component update for lifecycle A, parent component is called. Then render for parent component is called. Then control shifted to child component, then get derived state from props for child component is called. Then should component update for child component is called. Render for child component is called. Get snapshot before update for child component is called. Get snapshot before update for child component is called. Parent component is called. Then component did update for child component is called, and component did update for parent component is called. This is the actual way. Again, I will let you know that these all methods are not really useful for React class lifecycle. Only two methods we are using mostly is, one of them is render and the other one is component did update. Rest all method we are using very rarely depending upon the scenarios. Let me move ahead and try to talk about unmounting phase of lifecycle methods also. Unmounting phase contain only one method, that is component will unmount. That is called when this method is invoked immediately before a component is destroyed or unmount. What in this method you have to do is you have to cancel the request, you have to remove any kind of event handler. For example, you are tracking mouse tracking event you have added from your component towards DOM. Before removing the component, you have to remove that mouse tracking event also. Cancelling of any subscription or request you can do here as well. Invalidating timers also. For example, you had set it up some set timeouts or set time interval, you can close them as well by using this component will unmount also. After that, the last method available, and then before going to the next step, I'll tell you one more thing, that do not call any kind of set state or network request in this method as well. It's highly not recommended. Lastly, we have error handling in our lifecycle method. In error handling phase, there are two methods available. First one is get. This is a static method, that is get derived state from error, and secondly component did catch. So these two methods are called when any kind of error is occurred in a lifecycle method or a constructor of any child component. So I will be discussing these methods in detail in our upcoming tutorials, where we will be talking about error boundaries and we will implement all of them in detail, and we will learn how to handle error boundaries and how to handle the scenarios when we are receiving the errors. I hope you guys liked today's tutorial. Please don't forget to subscribe and like our channel. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.